Today, we're diving into the story of a king whose name is basically a synonym for courage. I mean, he's a true symbol of freedom, a testament to the unbreakable human spirit. We're talking, of course, about the immortal legacy of Maharana Pratap. I mean, that line just hits you, doesn't it? It perfectly sets the stage. It tells us right away that we're not just talking about some historical figure from a textbook. No, this is about a legend, a story that's still inspiring people hundreds of years later. So how do you even begin to understand a man like that? Well, you've got to understand the world he was born into, right? That's what our first section is all about, the birth of self-respect. We're going to look at the whole political and cultural scene that shaped his incredible life and, more importantly, his unwavering principles. Okay, so to get our bearings, let's lock in two really important dates. First up, 1540. That's when he was born, at the incredible Kumbhagard Fort. Then, fast forward to 1576. This is the big one, the defining moment of his entire life, the legendary Battle of Haldighati. You'll see how pretty much everything pivots around these two moments. And this really paints the picture, doesn't it? On one side, you have the Mughal Empire. I mean, this was a massive, dominant force that ruled almost the entire subcontinent. You had so many other kingdoms that just decided to align with them, for peace or for power. But then, you look at the other side, and you see this one single point of light. Mewar, a lone kingdom that just refused to bow. So the big question is, why? Why did Mewar hold out when pretty much everyone else had given in? Well, it all boiled down to one man, Maharana Pratap, and his core, absolutely unshakable principle. For him, there was one thing, just one thing, more valuable than his crown, his riches, even his own life. And that was self-respect, swabhiman. Seriously, this one idea was like his North Star, the compass that guided every single decision he made, no matter what it cost him. And you just know, a principle that's strong is bound to be tested, right? And boy, was it ever. That brings us to our next section, Haldighati. Think of this less as just a clash of armies, and more as a war of pure, raw spirit. All right, picture this. The year is 1576. The place is Haldighati, this narrow, rugged mountain pass in Rajasthan. The stage is officially set for one of the most famous and, frankly, one of the most brutal battles in all of Indian history. Okay, so on one side of this battlefield, you've got an absolutely overwhelming force, the Mughal army. Just try to imagine it, a literal sea of soldiers, massive war elephants, endless cavalry, the full might of the wealthiest, most powerful empire in the land. And then you look to the other side, and the contrast is just staggering. It's Maharana Pratap leading his much, much smaller army, and he's on his legendary, fiercely loyal horse, Chetak. I mean, this is the textbook definition of David versus Goliath, a battle that's not about numbers, but about pure defiance against absolutely impossible odds. And right in the middle of all this chaos, this incredible story of loyalty just unfolds. Pratap's horse, Chetak, gets mortally wounded. But even then, with this unbelievable devotion, he carries his master away from the fighting. And then comes this final heroic act. The legends say Chetak leaped across a huge chasm just to get Pratap to safety. And only then, after he knew his king was safe, did he finally collapse from his injuries. It's a story of loyalty that's become just as famous as the battle itself. Truly amazing. Now, you might think the story ends there, on the battlefield, but it doesn't, not even close. In fact, what happened after the battle is what really cemented his legend. He may have lost the kingdom, but out there in the wilderness, he found his real purpose, which brings us to freedom found in forests. Okay, let's be real here. The Battle of Haldighati, by pretty much any military standard, was a defeat. Pratap lost his capital, he lost his land, but, and this is the most important part, while he was defeated, he was not broken. He fell back into the forests of the Aravalli Hills, and against all odds, he just refused to surrender. So for years, he lived off the land, fighting a guerrilla war. And this is where his whole mission kind of shifted. It wasn't just about getting the kingdom of Mewar back anymore. No, it became something bigger. It was about defending the very idea of swatantra, of freedom. You see, this ideal of liberty was a natural extension of his swabhiman, his self-respect. And that idea, well, that had become way more important than any physical throne. And all of this brings us to the real core message of his life, doesn't it? The ultimate takeaway that has locked his place in history forever. Let's dive into our final section, the principle he lived and died for: self-respect over the throne. This quote right here, it just sums up his entire philosophy. You have to remember, at the time, so many other rulers were choosing the easy path, making deals with a stronger power to keep their comfort, their security. But Pratap, he made a radically different choice. He believed, and he proved it with his life, that no crown, no kingdom, no sinhasan was worth giving up your swabhiman, your self-respect. And that's why, in the end, his legacy is so much more than just being a warrior or a king. Maharana Pratap became this immortal inspiration. He's a timeless symbol of that unbreakable human spirit. He's living proof of the idea that real victory isn't always about winning on the battlefield. It's about absolutely refusing to be broken. You know, his story might be centuries old, but it really makes you think, even today. It kind of forces us to turn the mirror on ourselves and ask a pretty tough question. In our own lives, with our own struggles at work or at home, what is the price of our self-respect? What are we truly willing to go through to protect it?